how much of this might also be with the disparity in campus size between Lakeside and Prestwick. For example, I know there's sixth grader that's in some pre-APs and compacted math, et cetera, and those are smaller class sizes. Well, you can't level that because pull kids in and out of those.
Right.
And I think that won't be remedied until you have two equally sized middle schools. So I wonder how much of that's going to stay. And so I don't know if you can shed some light on that. Like, hey, this range stayed wide, but because the 9 represents a pre-AP math course or a compacted math course versus a general math course, which is full or something to that effect.
Sure will. I can get that information. I'd be happy to collect that. Any other questions? You bet. Thank y'all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Next, I'd like to ask Dr. Ashley Glover to come up to do an update on House Bill 3 and pre-K, the new requirements that will be headed to districts across the state regarding full-day pre-kindergarten.
Thank you, Superintendent Gallagher, excuse me. Thank you, President Montemayor, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Gallagher. As you said, we have an exciting opportunity as the state is now supporting full-day pre-K with a new early education allotment. And I apologize, I have control here. There we are. Okay. So one of the new allotments that we have through House Bill 3 is our early education allotment. That's allocated to improve student performance and achievement in reading and math, but also supports full-day pre-K. So when we look at each campus, as Mr. Gallagher said, in the state of Texas, each district, we will provide full-day pre-K to eligible 4-year-olds. Now, we know this can cause some logistical situations to go from half-day to full-day immediately. So what the state has provided for us is if we're unable to implement immediately, there's a waiver opportunity that will begin in January. Now, waivers are 1, 2, or 3 years, and the purpose of me sharing this information with you is so that you have an awareness of the opportunities that we have ahead. Courtney Clover and I, we partner in supporting our pre-K teachers. And so when we go through and we look at our curriculum, when we look at the class size, the opportunities that we have in our pre-K, we're very proud of that. And so of course we want to look to see how quickly can we grow this, but make sure it's sustainable and appropriate. So in our pre-K program, we have the opportunity of a 1, 2, and 3-year waiver, as I stated. In 2019, if we were to do the 3-year waiver, this year, we would file that in January. But prior to doing that, we would need to solicit partnerships from both public and private entities to see how we can build into a full-day pre-K. It's a challenge for districts to go, as I stated, from half-day and 10 different classrooms to a full-day. Teachers, how many students do we have that need that type of thing. In year 2, 2021, we would be required to open 1 full-day 4-year-old classroom to eligible students. In just a moment, I'll share with you those eligibility criteria. And either that or we would partner with the entity or in-house. Year 3, we must open a 2nd full-day 4-year-old classroom to eligible students. But in 22-23, we would open a full-day 4-year-old pre-K to all eligible students or apply for an additional waiver. These are the eligibility criteria, and it is excuse me, I'm having a little difficulty with my eye over here. It is English language learners, are educationally disadvantaged, which is our free and reduced lunch, homeless, a child of an active duty military or a child of an active duty member of the military, are those that are killed or injured in the line of duty, in conservatorship of the Department of Family and Protective Services, a child of a person eligible for the Star of Texas Award, which is a peace officer, firefighter, emergency medical first responder. And then any services, of course, designated through an individualized education plan or an IEP. So I wanted to share with you the current and future planning. So next month, what we would be looking to do is to solicit partnerships with public and private entities in a public meeting to determine the option of partnering with them potentially to fulfill those requirements. So what that would look like is, as a district, we would be doing a call for partnerships essentially and saying we would like to partner with these particular entities that meet these quality, pre-K high quality components. And we would also have in October a financial estimation for you, which I know that that's very important, and we're working on that. And then in November, we would review that impact. We would look at any partnership that had shown interest, that had reached out to us. We will go out, we will make sure that everyone knows there's opportunities out there for us to review, and then determine whether to enter into that partnership or go ahead and fulfill that need within LEISD. In December, we'll look at the waiver options again, and we will make a recommendation, of course, to you, and you can share with us your thoughts. And then if dependent upon that recommendation, we would look to file the waiver in January, 2020, if approved. So this is very quickly, this is an excellent opportunity for us. As you may know, we had full day pre-K in the past. We had that at King, we had it for 4-year-olds, and we had, I believe it's about 382 or so up until 2011. And then when we went to half day, Courtney Clover and I, we saw a significant decrease in our participation going from full to half day, be it from, families being able to look at the transportation or just opportunity to attend. Of course, it's a different cohort of children. But as we know, education really begins with that early childhood learning. So we're excited for the opportunity. What questions do you have? May I answer for you?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Have we looked at a path to see if we can do it in 1 or 2 years instead of 3?
So we are looking at that. Every district, including us, we're looking at financial. We knew that doing it like right this moment would not be possible because it was passed in July. In looking at next year, we're going to look at all options. We're going to present all options, but of course there is the financial piece, and we want to make sure that when we do go forward with full day, that we can sustain it appropriately and that it's in the best interest of students and the best interest of the district. So we are looking at all options.
Okay, now, the funding that was included in the HB3 on this,
Yes.
was this the 2 year, again, they just did this for the 2 years and not anything thereafter, correct?
For the waivers,
Yes.
so we have a 1, 2, and 3-year waiver.
The funding that the state included for this.
The allotments.
Yes.
For pre-K, K1 and 2, and then it has some waiting funded for some different populations.
But they only did the funding for 2 years, correct? So that's part of the consideration.
So, Grant, since
Yeah,
you're not
but,
on,
but what the legislature said, there's also no indication that they're going to keep it either.
can we clarify, since you're not on on audio because it's being recorded, can you come up and repeat what you just said? And I think while Grant's walking up, what Mr. Blackwood said is accurate. Obviously, it really depends on who's elected and what their goals are. So all of this can change. However, we've got to move forward with the plans
No,
that we
absolutely.
know.
No, I understand. And
based upon
that
current
obviously
law.
is
Yeah, well,
one of
that's
the
a good
major
summary.
concerns.
So we don't,
Well,
so we don't, yeah, there's no indication that's going to go away, but of course, every biennium, the legislature will decide how they'll fund it and what they'll fund. And so even prior to HB3, that was the case. So right now, I think we do have to go forward with the requirements of the state and whatever.
No, and the only reason why I'm asking is because understand we can't, it's not financially feasible for us to turn this around right now and do it immediately. Understand that 100%. I would really love to see us get this off the ground for next year, to be completely honest with you. I think this is an extremely important issue, the early pre-K 3 and 4-year-olds. The one thing that I don't want to see happening, because we don't know what's going to happen, and a lot of this funding, I think a lot of us are very unclear if it's going to be there in 2 more years, to be honest with you, is I don't want to jump in 100% and then turn around and the funding's completely gone. And then granted, we will do everything we can to keep the program going, but if we jump in, with both feet and then the funding disappears out from us, can we sustain it?
No, and that's a good point, and that's why we're going through the
Yeah.
waiver process. I do agree that the waiver process is
Mhm.
allowing us to move into eventually offering, full-day pre-K for all of the students in
Yeah.
Little Elm ISD that need it. And I do want to remind the board, one of our hopes and plans as we move forward is to repurpose one of
Yes.
the buildings here in Lobo
Absolutely.
Lane
Yeah.
as an early childhood center. I do want to point out, Dr. Glover, did you, and I apologize, did you clarify that the partnership is a requirement to consider? Was that clarified?
Let me clarify now, just in case. So we are required as a district, and then with your support as a board, to solicit the partnerships from the community, both private and public entities. It's a requirement for every district in the state of Texas, because the options include those partnerships or fulfilling those needs internally. So that's something that we must do. And so part of that process in preparing for October is we will go and we will solicit for those partnerships to share. And then subsequently in November, we'll have more information for the financial impact, partnerships to consider, and then a determination in looking at how do we want to fulfill this need? Outside partnerships, within, what are our choices?
And we will come back with detailed information on that. I will tell you, the vision that I have for the district, again, is to have full-day pre-K in an early childhood center or early childhood opportunities for every student in Little Elm ISD that needs that and that qualifies for that.
Right.
So ultimately, it is something we want to own, and we want to be in charge of it as Little Elm ISD.
We're really excited about the opportunity. Of course, sooner is better always, but we also want to make sure we make responsible decision and present you those options.
So just for my own clarification, because I want to make sure I'm clear on this,
Sure.
are we still offering half-day and full-day? So I can just make sure we're doing both, right, during this waiver period?
We are, and how we're doing that is we have 10 classrooms, we have half day. That's a requirement in the state of Texas, which we would
Okay.
offer regardless for any student who's eligible under the eligibility criteria that I mentioned. Our full day opportunities are for tuition based, which is also in Texas Education Code Chapter 29. And that is for students who do not qualify based upon the Texas eligibility criteria. They have the opportunity to do a tuition-based full day.
Okay.
That is the only full day offering that we have. Most school districts in our area, those that I work with, do the same,
Okay,
have those
Just-
same options.
just wanted to make sure.
Yes,
So
sir.
we will continue the half-day even
Oh,
once we
yes.
start the full day? Well, this one, let's say, so in 22, 23.
Everybody would need to be full day.
Yeah.
So the half-day will eventually go away.
It would,
Okay.
because everyone would be required to have full day.
Well, he's confused.
Yep.
My
But-
apologies. Do I need to clarify that?
I said, you're in this, thank you.
Okay. We will continue with our half-day responsibilities and opportunities as well as tuition base. When we get to 22, 23, we would need to ensure that we have full-day opportunities for all eligible 4-year-olds. Yes. Okay. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glover. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Rod Reeves to come to the podium. And you're going to give an update on our growth report, second quarter.
Thank you, Superintendent Gallagher and board members. Just here to give a brief update on our second quarter 2019 growth report. And I'm not going to go necessarily detail by each page, but basically what we're seeing in this report is what you've seen in the last reports. However, we are seeing a little bit of a slowdown. And you'll notice that on page number 2, that you're seeing that the annual home starts kind of dropped a little bit. It hasn't dropped a lot, but it used to be closer to 35,000. So we are seeing a little slow downturn in that case. On page 3, look at some information that's going on. Sorry, Clay, do you want to? Okay, sorry. So on page 3, you notice some local economic conditions. There's a And the aquatic park that's going in over there by the rec center, the Town of Little Elm Rec Center, that's going to start construction at the end of this year. We have the Palladium. Remember, that's where our King facility used to be and our transportation facility. They'll be starting on that development. They're going to start with retail, commercial first, and kind of phase in some multifamily after that. You'll notice Rock Hill expansion, that's actually in Frisco ISD, but it does connect over there to 423. So we will see an impact on that for transportation as that thoroughfare connects to other areas in Frisco. On page number 4, we're still seeing that split between the new home sales and then those resale values. The next couple of slides just talk about the average home sale price. We're seeing the average home sale price of homes kind of level off a little bit, but between 2010 and 2019, we've seen almost 82% jump. So that's almost $155,000 increase to home sales. So there's the median home price are going up considerably. If you look at the starts and closings on page 7, you'll notice that the starts were a little more than the first quarter, but they're less than last year, okay? But you notice that the closings were considerably higher. A lot of that's due to, we had about 30 days of rain within that second quarter. I know that Mr. Martin's been dealing with that on the 2 middle school sites, trying to make up some time on those. He's doing a great job on those. We are seeing that the closings will probably be around 1,100 versus 1,400 of last year. So that kind of reinforces that slowdown just a little bit. When you look at the pages 8, 9, 10, 11, that just talks about those annual closings, those vacant developed lots, those future lots, and that next page just kind of is a numerical representation of those maps. What we're seeing there is Oak Point again. It's just, that's the area that everything is happening. And so you see, 5 of the top 10 subdivisions and the closings is in Oak Point. 6 of the top 10 the vacant developed lots are in Oak Point. 6 of the 10 future developments are in Oak Point. And you notice if you look at those attendance numbers for Oak Point, it's very, very high. So we have portables there. We're bringing portables again once Prestwick is converted to K-5. And so that tells you we can continue to bring portables. Sooner or later, we'll run out of space over there. So you might think about another elementary school site in that zone possibility. So just something to think about. As you go through, you notice that on page 12, we see that the district housing overview, those red outlines just represent those active subdivisions. Those are our current ones like Prestwick, we have Valencia.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
I'm sorry to stop. I'm on page 9 on the presentation. Are we on the right page on the presentation?
Okay. Yes.
We are? That was a question.
Let me get to page 9 here. That right there?
I just want to make sure that where you're at is aligned with the presentation.
So it says 9 on mine, so is that,
As long as, yeah,
I got you, yes.
okay, good. Just want to make sure.
sorry about that, Superintendent Gallagher. So thank you for that. So on my page, it says page 12. Let me go to that real quick. See the district housing overview, those red boundaries show those active subdivisions. We are seeing some new ones located just south of our new middle school site over by Walker. We're seeing some high-end homes that are going to be starting construction over there starting 2020. If we look at the next few slides, like the tribute, we're looking at the build out of 3 to 5 years for that. Valencia, remember we have an elementary school site located within that development, and it's looking at a 3 to 5 year build out. If an elementary school is placed in that development for elementary students, we would not have to transport any student because it's all within 2 miles. So just something to think about. This is your Wild Ridge and Shahan Lakeview additions. These are continue to develop. You're looking at 4-year build out for Wild Ridge. Shahan Lakeview addition is about 2 to 3 year build out. So that doesn't count all the other future developments that are happening in Oak Point. That's just going to continue to feed Oak Point. This is the villages of Creekwood. This is at the intersection of Witt and King Road. And so that's going to increase that, along with Rivendell by the lake is also going to increase that at Hackberry. That's a 3 to 5 year build out. This is that South Oak I was discussing earlier. That is just south of Walker Middle School site. Multifamily, we're kind of lucky in Little Elm. We don't have an abundance of multifamily. And what we do have, there's not a lot of students that come out of there. These are those areas that Little Elm Lakefront is kind of, that Palladium is what I talked about earlier. That's where there's going to be some multifamily, along with Lakefront on El Dorado and Lakeshore Plaza. This is just a 10-year forecast, and I want you to look at that 4th and 5th grade areas, that bubble. And so it's, thank goodness we're building those middle schools, because as those kids move through, you know, this year at Lakeside Middle School and Powell, it's going to be a little tight. It's going to be a little tight. And so it's good that we're going to have some relief next year at the middle school level. Pretty close to 1,600. And so this is a 10-year forecast just for elementary campuses. The yellow just represents when it reaches maximum capacity. Remember, that does not mean that's the way they use the building. For instance, Lakeview has a lot of our special needs classes there, so the student to teacher ratio is much lower. So the threshold, you're going to be reaching maximum or reaching capacity of that campus much sooner. So either we change the program there, or we could possibly rezone. There's just different things that could happen. If we look at our 10-year forecast for secondary, this is that we talked about a little under 1,600 at the middle school. What I want to talk about is at our high school. Now, as our current bond package, we have some renovations going on at the high schools, but there's really no additional classrooms that are added. Plus, if you walk in the hallway, the main hallway, sometimes during passing period, it can get a little tight there too. So we're working with the campus staff to look for alternatives before something else could happen, let's say a future bond package for additions, to look at how we might alleviate that stress in that main corridor. So, in summary, we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown, not a lot. Mr. Anderson's, forecasted that in his budget. But we are still seeing, we're still growing, but it's not at the same rate we were before. Seeing some stress over at Oak Point. We're going to continue to see that at Oak Point until we have some relief. And then our high school is probably the next one that we need to kind of think about. So on that note, I'll answer any questions.
Tomorrow, any questions?
All right.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Appreciate you.
So with that, we will go to item 9, approval of minutes. So the motion to approve the minutes from regular board meeting minutes from August 19th.
So moved.
Second. Any comments or concerns on those minutes? All those in favor of approving minutes? Thank you very much. All right, first item for consideration of your action items, the compensation approval.
Yeah, President Myers, board member, I'm sorry, Montemayor. I knew that would happen at least one more time. President Montemayor, board members, this is in reference to the discussion we had regarding the compensation plan. The administration recommends that the board approve the compensation agreement as submitted or as presented in closed session. Thank you.
I'm sorry, who made the?
I make the motion.
A second.
Any other comments or concerns? No. All those in favor? Thank you very much. All right, now we have consideration of possible action on matters addressed in executive session. So in regards to TA complaint number 201914912, I move that the board authorize the superintendent or superintendent's designee to resolve the matter according to the terms discussed in closed session and to execute all necessary documents in connection therewith.
Second.
I made the motion. Any other questions or concerns on that? All those in favor of approving that agreement? Okay. All right. Then we also have the consideration of 2 FTEs in special education, one licensed specialist in school psychology, and one speech language pathologist.
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you,
Roberts.
President Montemayor. Board members, in response to increased number of students eligible for special education and related services in Little Elm ISD Special Populations Department, upon verification of the urgent need, we're asking the board to consider 2 FTEs, additional evaluation and service provider staff members. One would be an LSSP, which is licensed specialist in school psychology, and one SLP, which is a speech language pathologist. So the administration recommends approval of one licensed specialist in school psychology and one speech language pathologist position as submitted.
Is there a motion to accept these FTEs as submitted? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or concerns on these? All right, all those in favor of approving these 2 FTEs? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we have the consideration of 1 FTE, a paraprofessional, a non-exempt position.
Yes. This is an additional FTE to be allocated as a non-exempt position for the day academy at Little Elm High School. This will be funded 100% paid for out of our at-risk funds for the day academy. The administration recommends approval of 1 paraprofessional non-exempt position as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All right, any questions, concerns on this position? All right, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we also have the consideration of 12 part-time, non-exempt lunchroom monitor positions.
Yes, this is necessary and feedback from our elementary principals. What this does is maximize time for our teachers for collaboration time, as well as time for our teachers to serve and intervene with our student body. And so administration is seeking 12 non-exempt lunchroom monitors. 2 lunchroom monitors will be placed at each elementary for 3 hours a day. This support will aid teachers in that collaboration time and intervention time for students. The administration recommends approval of 12 non-exempt lunchroom monitors as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? I did have a question.
Yes, sir.
So it says that there is not any financial implication to the district, but there is going to be a cost to this.
So the reason why I put that in there, we had built in our budget, I believe, around $70,000. And so we did some research and found out that we could hire this personnel or look at this personnel for a 3-hour period of time instead of a 4-hour period of time, which will allow us to request for 12. And we will come in around about 68,000 underneath that amount that was already budgeted.
So there is a cost,
So no
but it's not
additional
additional
cost,
cost.
We already approved it.
So we had already
Right.
approved the amount, we
Already
just hadn't approved the
amount. That
headcount.
is correct.
Okay.
And I worked with the business office to put that verbiage in there because y'all had already approved the amount.
Okay.
That is
And
correct.
then the second question I have is, one thing's approving the positions, another one is finding them. Do we have any inroads into where we are going to find someone that's willing to work just 3 hours a day?
I ran across a great idea where we could look at possibly our transportation department, meaning that people that drive bus routes go to a designated time in the morning and then nothing in the middle of the day, and they run routes in the afternoon. that could be a group of people that we work with to fill that middle of the day,
Mr.
which will
Roberts,
be
but-
very helpful.
We will post those positions
post them.
online, so that way it'll be open to anybody that wants to apply. But I do agree that we do know there are some bus drivers that
Right.
are interested in it, so,
Parents too, correct?
and parents as well. But it will be posted to where anybody can apply.
Our number one step is to post those and to use our necessary means to recruit and try to find the people, but we also can tap into some of our transportation people as well as parents, things like that.
And this will be at every elementary and middle school, or which campuses are going to take advantage of this?
Elementaries,
All on,
yes, sir.
all of them?
All of them, 6 of them.
Okay, so two, okay.
Be very helpful.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of approving these 12 part-time positions? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank y'all very much.
All right, now Ms. Glover, we also have consideration of the 2019-2020 District Improvement Plan.
Thank you, President Montemayor, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Gallagher. Each year I have the opportunity to share some information with you on our district improvement plan. And just to remind everyone, the process it requires, and we take advantage of the involvement of parents, staff, and community members. We look at a lot of different things in order to do a comprehensive needs assessment. A lot of times people think perhaps that's just test scores. It's not. It's surveys, it's qualitative data, it's quantitative things, it's student need, teacher need. So we really look at a variety of things as a district education improvement council. We do multiple measures of data. We moved to this from our previous No Child Left Behind components, and these include looking at things that are going well, growth areas, and so on, for demographics, student achievement, district processes and programs, and perceptions. Now, we have guidance and a program that we use, so we don't just, what does this look like today? We make sure that we follow some really precise requirements and make sure we're asking not just questions, but good questions so that we can really get to the heart of our needs. So the process is for the DEIC, in the spring, we look at our goals, the goals that we've had previously. We discuss, review, and develop the performance objectives, strategies, and funding, which is what you have in your board book. Now, the actual district improvement plan, which changes on a weekly basis, you have a snapshot, essentially. It usually has about 40 addendums, some of them required, some of them just for transparency's sake, that share a variety of information with you. That will be posted, if approved, that will be posted by the end of September. And we also have that translated for our parents that would like to see that in Spanish, and our families. So when I look at this next slide, and when in talking with Superintendent Gallagher, this is probably, I'm not going to say exciting, but this was one thing that I really felt great about. And that's that we're streamlining our goals in order for them to be precisely what our Destination 2025 looks like. So our teaching and learning, community engagement, human capital, and ensuring fiscal health and sustainability. This way, when we look at our needs and we produce those strategies to reach our important goals, they look in line exactly with what our overall goals are as a community, as a district. So it's an improvement plan that really supports not only just the district level, but our campuses, and it also really keeps in mind those goals that we have as a committee and community. Okay, so future information. Tonight you are reviewing the proposed improvement plan, which, as I stated, is in your board book. And next month you will have the campus improvement plans. We do formative updates, so we don't just look at it and forget it. We look at and we make sure that we update October, January, March, and June. But these plans are living beings. As I said, they're already not to the portion that you have in board book, but I've already made some additional addendum uploads and things of that nature. So things are ongoing and changing with our needs. We will have DEIC meetings throughout the year, and that comes from campus recommendation and elections. And it, again, is comprised of parents, community members, and teachers and paraprofessional staff. And then we will look at our overall, how we're doing. And then we just do an ongoing review with funding. Now, in your board book, when you look at what you have are the things that they ask us to share with our boards for approval. And that is you're looking at the strategies, the overall goals.
Dr. Glover,
Doctor, they're not in here.
the only thing that's in board book is the presentation.
Okay, so we'll make sure you have that right away. Okay,
So I moved that we table this until we actually have the planner and able to review it. We're not gonna be able to do it in the 30 seconds between the time she finishes and discuss it.
We actually can add that to the workshop agenda. That way it might help with the timeline that I know we have to.
Yes.
So we can add it to the workshop agenda. So do you want to make that motion that?
Yeah. I motion we table this until we can discuss in workshop.
You've pretty much presented what's in the slides we do have, I think, right? So,
yes, sir. And my apologies to the board for that. We will make sure that that is available to you right away so that you have that for workshop. What we have inside of the district improvement plan that is being sent forth are our goals, our strategies. We have 4 goals, multiple strategies, and a lot of action steps. So that will be available to you right away.
perfect. All right, so all those in favor of going over that in workshop? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now consideration of financial reports. Mr. Anderson?
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Gallagher. In your board packets, you have the July 2019 financials for the 2018-19 fiscal year. And as you know, we're in between fiscal years right now. We're closing up 2018-19 and we're opening 2019-20. The budget amendments and financial information presented include current amendments and financial data through September 2019 for the 2019-20 fiscal year. The financials include the general fund, capital projects fund, debt service fund, and special revenue funds. And some notes to the financials. In the general fund, no major general fund budget amendment. The capital projects fund, we have an appropriation of $201,000 in non-bond capital outlay, which includes the emergency purchase of HVAC units. And the units were ordered prior to the board meeting with notification to the board through email. And bond funds appropriate $1,059,773 for athletic complex turf replacement and appropriate $1 million for HVAC emergency, which Rick will be discussing further in this board meeting. The debt service fund, there is no major debt service fund budget amendments. Other future financial considerations, the increase in annual operating costs for the new facilities as we look at each month that we're estimating about $1.8 million in additional operating costs. And as you know, the 86th legislative session in our HB3, which was passed, I guess the consideration is that Texas school districts will be receiving further guidance from the state and commissioner relating to certain details of HB3, which will impact 2019-20 school year and future years, and that's still being rolled out. I think daily we get a little bit more information. And of course, as we know that there is a risk of financial sustainability at the state level, which will be a continued discussion of both the local and state levels. And then ongoing preventive and deferred maintenance costs of the buildings, possible slowdown or decline in tax collection rate. And we've been considering the uncovering of general fund budget from general capital outlay costs. And in that we're trying to move some of the capital outlay costs in the general fund to the 600 funds, which are long-term capital outlay.
Mhm.
And as you know, we have this approved capital reimbursement resolution from the 2017 bond of up to $10 million as communicated in the bond program election. And that's yet to be reimbursed at all. And we're just going forward, seeing what our general fund can do to contribute to the capital outlay fund for the district. And if we come up short, we may use some of that. And the finance committee has been reviewing this for the last couple months, and we'll keep going forward with those discussions. The general fund, now this is our new budget for 2019-20. You can see our initial budget of estimated revenue is $76.5 million. You can see the proposed amendments tonight, about $21,000 in estimated revenue. And we're opening up the new year at our appropriations at the campus level is 79%. You can see we have a balanced budget, and remember that's due to the $4.9 million transfer out, which is a holding place for HB3 contingency. Again, as we add programs, which the early childhood will be, some of those dollars will be most likely appropriated from that transfer out. This is our fund balance. You can see that in 2018-19, we're about $29 million in total fund balance, and we're flat all the way through, again, because of the transfer out. So we're not showing a change in our fund balance, although when we finish up our 2018-19 fiscal year, that will most likely add a few dollars to our fund balance and then transfer out maybe up to about $3-4 million to capital outlay. And our auditors will be here to present the audit in the December board meeting. Our capital outlay fund, as you know, that we've sold $175 million of the $240 million authorized. And you can see the land or the board approved bond projects. You can see the completed projects and that budget status and the project balance, showing that Rick's coming under budget on these projects as they're being completed. And this is just a continuation. And you can see the stadium scoreboard has been completed and the 12 buses. And we have about $6 million remaining of issued bond balance, which is net of our current budget.
Excuse me.
And these are the non-bond capital projects. And we have $15 million, $15.6 million, which includes the transportation facility of $10,895,000. And you can see percentage expensed in the projects. Our debt service fund for the new year, see, we just realized a few dollars in tax revenue and some expenditures for bond issuance, costs and fees. But we're estimated about a $300,000 surplus in our debt service fund. The administration recommends approval of the July 2019 financial reports as submitted.
Is there a motion to approve this report as submitted? So moved. Is there a second? I did have just one comment
Okay.
on the second. I know in the board, in the packet, we have all the account details.
Yeah.
Second page, it talks about the capital projects funds, where it has the fund and then the function and then increase or decrease.
The capital projects fund and yes,
And so we have decrease, increase, which are the same values, and then we have a net increase or decrease. I'm just wondering, because these are all the same, you would think that we had an increase and decrease offsetting each other, that it would be zero.
the increase and decrease in the fund balance, there's a $201,000 that is being appropriated for the HVAC system, some other items that Rod's going to be presenting.
Right, but what we're saying, I think to David's point, what we're saying is that we're taking away the function, we're decreasing money in certain functions. We're increasing it in the same amounts in other functions. So therefore, it should be a net zero balance. We're showing a negative $200,000 when to us that, or at least to me, that doesn't make sense. We're just reappropriating funds, so that's actually a zero
It's a
from
zero
that.
sum.
It's a zero sum from that. Because
Yeah,
we're
I think
not,
what this is doing is showing the impact on the fund balance of
This is from this
$201,000.
fund,
It's
and
kind of
this is
like
for the fund
almost not
balance.
unrelated to the horizontal.
okay.
Oh, so it's
We
not a
can't-
net
So they pull
across,
funds from
it's,
here
It's
I
trying
know,
to-
but-
oh,
And then
okay,
we
it's, this
spin
is
it out
the
in fund balance.
expense,
Yes,
But if you
and
look
this
the
is
way
where it
it's
came
written-
from.
Well, no,
Yes,
fund
it's trying to
balance,
communicate that
But you're decreasing one
$201,000 is
fund.
going to be coming out of
so that
our
way then we pull it
capital
out,
know,
outlay
but-
fund balance.
but coming out of that.
So no, I get what, I can see the confusion in it, but it's not a horizontal calculation.
Yeah,
You're
it
okay
just
with
looks
that?
at, I just wonder if there's
From one GL to
an
another.
easier way to present that.
There will be.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions?
No.
Okay, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you
Okay,
very much,
thank you.
Mr. Anderson. All right, so now the consideration of the Emergency HVAC Equipment Replacement Fund.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present these to you tonight. I do have two for you tonight. The first one is the establishment of an emergency HVAC equipment replacement fund out of the bond funds. We've pulled monies from capital replacement and from phase two of HVAC work to make this available to us now, because it will be some time before we get into phase two with Siemens, which will affect the rest of the district's HVAC equipment. And we have some pieces out there that just will not make it. So rather than come back to you every month with a list of things that we need to do, we're trying to get this established, and then we'll report back to you each month what we spend monies out of that fund for. So we move that the board approve the establishment of an emergency HVAC equipment replacement fund as presented.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or concerns about this fund?
So Rick, I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part. You said the fund's coming out of part of the bond and where else? Part
It's
of
all-
phase two?
It's all bond.
It's all bond
fund.
related, right?
Yes, sir.
So we're just moving this up. We're still going to take it out when we sell the bonds. We're just moving it up to give you the authorization to do it sooner
Correct.
because Siemens is going to come to a recommendation for replacing all the equipment at a future date, correct?
That's correct. Yes,
All
sir.
right. That's fine.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as you get to stick around, also to consider the athletic complex turf replacement and renovations.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is at the athletic complex. There's two phases there. The second phase will take place in the next phase of bond sale. This first one will replace the turf and some of the drainage issues that we have around the field at the complex. I've included in the agenda item or behind the agenda item is an overall budget, which includes more than just the turf, but all the items and the specialties that are required to get us there. I showed you then a short list of where it's coming from in the bond item. And we're actually proposing a budget that is less than what's been set aside in that program. We would expect to start the turf and field events in November, assuming we get approval tonight. The second phase then will come back to you, and we'd want to start that as far as the track surface and replacement in May of next year. So the administration recommends approval of the project budget as presented and authorize the superintendent or his designee to negotiate and execute the required contracts.
Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Any more detailed questions?
Yeah, Rick, I do have just one for you real quick. In the forms here, I guess in the options provided by Hellas, there's the three different options, the 1, 2, and 3. Basically, I guess it's the substrate or the underlayment is what the different options are for. Is that correct?
It's the type of fill material.
Mhm.
Option number 3 is what we just completed over at the high school.
Yep.
That's kind of the top of the line system that has the organic material as the fill material instead of the rubber beads.
Mhm.
Option 2 is a new system that they've come out with. The AD wasn't willing to sign off on that one yet
Yeah.
until she's seen it and talked to some people who have it. So the budget includes option 3, which is the same field type material that we're using at the
Okay.
high school.
Okay.
And that's all I was asking, just what clarification, because I don't think
That
it
was
said
it.
specifically in here. Okay, thank you.
I just had one question. I'm not sure if I missed it, but what was the warranty on this? Any warranty?
Oh, there's a warranty to it. I can't tell you exactly what it is.
Can we find out?
Yes, sir.
I think it was 10 years. I think it was 10.
Mr. Flores, are you
Here,
talking
it's
about
Page 1.
the current turf or the
Oh.
new one there?
There's on, to answer your page or your question, page 2 of the Hellas one, I guess 101 on your board book, if you go down where the dashes are, 8-year manufacturer warranty, but that's on just specifically the synthetic turf, but then I think each part of the underlayment and everything has its own warranty, but that's specifically on the turf itself.
That's correct.
8-year manufacturer warranty
Number
on the
15.
on the turf.
Number 15.
Yeah, the last hyphen on line number 15. And I think there was, I forget where it was at, but there's a couple other warranties in there for some of the substrate.
All right, any more questions? All right, all those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay.
Martin.
Thank you.
All right, now we're considering the 2019-20 capital outlay projects. Mr. Reeves?
Hello again. Just here to present 2019-20 capital outlay projects. These are not going to be all the projects that are going to be in our outlay fund, but these are the beginning of them for this year. And so there's 5 of them that we're going to bring to you for recommendation, consideration tonight. The first is Chavez Elementary School rooftop units, Lakeside Middle School rooftop units. Again, remember, this is separate than what Mr. Martin just presented on the bond side. We need to move quickly on these two. That's an emergency funding that Mr. Anderson talked about, the $200,000 that we had to move to replace these units. We have the Lobo Stadium Graphics Package 2. Remember that first package was to have that Lobo Stadium there. And then Dr. Tipton and Ms. Howe have been working with some of our sponsors or future sponsors. And there's some representations within the presentation that we'll show you. Prestwick Forensic Study. We'll show you that. There's a picture in there that shows kind of what's going on there. We're seeing systemic things going on with our utilities. That foundation is what they call a slab on voids. So you have piers, you have a beam that creates a little void with, they say, cardboard boxes. Over time, those disintegrate and there's a void between the slabs. So the structural foundations good. However, those utilities are still within the ground. So when there's movement of those utilities, let's say our vent stacks, our sanitary sewer, things of that nature, they're going to move and things like that. Luckily for the new middle schools and for the high school addition that we did, we have what they call a crawl space. So if we do see any of those types of movements, it's easier to remedy than what we're seeing now. So this first phase is a forensic study by Mr. Heidel, and then some additional landscaping at Little Elm High School. So it's going to be a little over $201,000 that would be asking for approval this evening. So before we get started on those 2 HVAC units, I did want to reiterate that we are working with the Siemens Group. And luckily, because of the 2017 bond package, we had funding sources to replace almost every single unit in our district. About 70 to 80% of all of our units are obsolete. They're between 15 and 20 years old. Some are 25 years old. And so what that does, our staff has done a great job. Danny and his team are just trying to keep those going. You may have received a call from a parent or two about some HVAC issues. It may work one day, then the next day it might not work, so we have to get out there again. So we're trying to hold on until we get the funding for the replacement of all of those. We've already completed the utility assessment of all of our lighting systems, HVAC equipment, irrigation systems, and our building envelopes. We've also pulled the trigger on our automation. That's our building automation system that kind of controls all of our lighting, our HVAC that's been upgraded already. And then the high school this fall, all the units will be replaced at the high school. We thought it was going to happen this summer, but we missed that construction window. And so the next one will be around Thanksgiving or Christmas for that. Chavez is just a visual. We're looking at the 2 units at the gym for a little over $40,000. At Lakeside Middle School, we're looking at 2 areas, the cafeteria, and then also area 2 would be the administration stage area. We're looking at replacing rooftop units over there for a cost of a little over, $14,500. If you look at your board backup information, these are our budget numbers. We've had placed some contingencies in there in case there was an overrun, so we didn't come back, but we did break that down for you in each of those budgets. If we look at Lobo Stadium, this is sort of some representation of where the graphics will go. Like I said, Dr. Tipton is working with some partners to see about getting those filled up pretty quick. And I think they're called Lobo Partners and Wolfpack Partners and things like that. So thank you for all your help on that, Dr. Tipton. That's a little over $24,000. And then Prestwick STEM Academy, this is a sanitary sewer, what we're seeing, and that's just a break in the vent stack. And you see how we've tried to kind of repair it when we can, but we've already notified the architect of record for this project, along with the contractor of record for this project, to let them know that we will be in continued discussions with them. And so whatever we find, that we will be looking for partnerships in any remedy on that. So that's $30,000 for that forensic study. And then finally, Little Elm High School, we're just continuing. I don't know if you've been out there to Little Elm High School, the front entry, also the back entry by the cafeteria. Danny Cogdale and his team have done a great job of improving the landscaping there. We want to continue that effort and put some more sod in that front area between Walker and the high school. Right now, you kind of see there's some sand out there right now, not grass, so we want to make sure we sod that. Also, bring in some topsoil and sod right there by that new sidewalk we placed in there. That grade kind of steps off pretty quick, so we want to make sure we infill that there. Also, we want to create a installation of a path between the 2 wings. We have to reroute some irrigation. This will help alleviate a little bit of that traffic from the high school main corridor. On those nice days, we'll be able to walk outside and go from one wing to another. However, if it's raining, something like that, we need to think about some future things we want to do there in case it's raining, they have to go outside that way. So that's $14,500. And this little red area is something that Mr. Martin is working on with the horticulture and Dr. Tipton to make sure we kind of screen that area. We've had some recommendations by some members in the community that we might want to screen the greenhouse a little bit, but it also provides a little protective area for that class to put some planter areas and things of that nature. And so you'll be seeing that in the near future. So on that note, the administration recommends that you approve the 2019-20 capital outlay projects and budgets as submitted and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute final contracts. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
So on the Prestwick stuff, you said you've already contacted the architects and contractors. What's been their demeanor so far?
They have listened to us. They've responded. They've come out. They haven't stopped talking to us, and they seem to want to be partners with us. And so far, so good, I would say.
Okay. And then I guess the second question I had is, you mentioned going from one week to another when the weather's nice, you go in between. Was that part of the design to go between those 2 wings, or my concern there is security issues? I mean, do those doors stay open? Do kids have the car? I mean, how do we monitor that?
That's a great question. So on the door side, of things, we have them on a schedule. And so during passing periods, those doors will remain open for a limited amount of time for kids to be able to go in, and then they automatically shut. And so during those passing periods, they can. And so that's one option that we've looked at for that. If you're saying that they remain open all the time, they do not. The doors do not remain open all the time.
Sure.
During those periods.
Or if that is the case where the doors are on timers, what typically we do is work with staff members around that area that they stay in close proximity and keep an eye on those doors until they're locked back on a secured timetable, just to have an adult there.
Thanks, Ross.
With that monitoring area too.
I do have a quick question too on the sod installation. Is that area irrigated? Because I don't want to just see us put it in sod and then a couple months later, it's all turned to brown.
It is irrigated.
Okay, so we do have like, it's set for a sprinkler system, timers, all that good stuff.
Yes, that's correct.
And
Just
it's
make-
Texas, it's gonna be brown in a couple months anyway.
I know it is, but I'm just concerned about just putting it in there basically as a filler when you can just
That's
put
a
it in
great
dirt.
question. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right. All those in favor? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, and now I had this pulled up and now my phone timed out. All right, so we as a board need to decide if we are going to vote for, trying to find the position here. So it's to cast, whether or not we're going to cast votes for the election of the Denton County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Historically, or as long as I remember, our representative on there, the person that's been there in the seat that we would vote for is David Terry. He is a city councilman for the Colony. I think we've all met him. He's pretty active in the community. This year, we did receive another request from a Brian Webb. He originally emailed all of us on August 19th with kind of a summary of his background and information and his desire for our consideration for our votes. I forwarded that back out to everybody on the 11th. So I just wanted to, hopefully you had time to review that, reflect on David Terry's time on that position. So you see, my desire would be to motion to, to re-elect or issue our votes for David Terry. I don't know of any reason not to continue with that, and I think he's served us well, so. I don't know if somebody has a different opinion.
No, I was gonna say, I'll make the motion to have our board vote for Mr. Terry.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other questions or discussion versus Ms. Terry versus Mr. Webb or anything? Okay, all those in favor? All right, thank you very much. Motion passes to cast our votes for Mr. David Terry. All right. On consent agenda, we are going to pull item B, consideration of FNG local policy. Yes, that's the one. We're just going to pull that for future consideration. So apart from that, we do have that consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve that as submitted?
I move to approve the consent agenda minus item B.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor? All right, motion passes. All right. As far as board comments from the president position, I would just like to know if we could get an update on SROs versus security guards at the high school and all the schools, and just kind of where we stand with our plan in general. I know we had talked in the past about going one-to-one and kind of where we stand on that. I also didn't know quite where security guards versus SROs fit in. That was a question that just recently came up, so.
We're going to put that on the workshop agenda. It's already there, so that'll be part of the workshop.
Perfect. So then I guess I'll open it up to the rest of the board.
I can't believe that kids get grades to fly drones. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome, isn't it?
It was great to see. Thanks for bringing that forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess this is the last board member or board meeting before homecoming, so get ready. Good time on the float abroad. Can't wait.
I think we're going to have to put some rules in place this year.
I'm just saying you may want to bring safety goggles. Maybe a smart move.
That's when I'll say no comment.
That's right. No, that's all for me. Thank you, staff, for staying late. Appreciate all the presentations tonight. Thank you for the good information.
No comment, Brian. Thank you, guys.
Again, thank you, staff, for everything you do for us.
I do want to say, again, thank you, staff, for staying late. I do want to congratulate our drumline and our band percussion. They had a great weekend at the HEB drumline contest. So congratulations to all of the students who participated, but also a special thank you to Mr. Neal, the assistant band director and percussion director, for his work there. So it was a great weekend, and go Lobos.
See you next weekend.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? All right, all those in favor? All right, meeting adjourns at 10:01 PM.
Quick first.